Welcome back to the weekly YouTube channel. I'm your host Owen, and today we're going to be going over another week's worth of XFL power rankings. Some huge movement this week, and there's a lot to talk about, so I'm just going to dive right into it here. This is going to be going into week 7, getting down to the final couple weeks here for playoffs. So we're trying to see what the playoff teams are going to be, top 2 of each division. But let's talk about the teams that aren't going to be in those playoff talks here. Starting with 2 representatives from the South. On the bottom, as not typical of this whole series so far, it's going to be the Arlington Renegades. I've low-key been the more of a dissenter on the Renegades in the past year, and they came into their game against the Brahmas as a favorite. I put some money on the Brahmas, and I won some money on the Brahmas because I know the Renegades don't really have an identity outside of like maybe Defiant Smith. I was never sold on the Renegades as a team. They were 3-2 heading into this game, but if you would have looked at any of the games they played, I don't think any of them were a resounding win. They barely squeaked by the Guardians. The Vipers collapsed, and I'm not sure I remember what the third win was, but I believe, was it against the Sea Dragons? Regardless, I was never convinced of this team being anything good. And again, they showed here against San Antonio, even though San Antonio is offensively inept and they're not able to make much room of anything, they were still not able to put up enough points to win. They lost 15-9. Drew Plitt came in. It was 10 of 16 for 163, 1-1 when it comes to touchdown interceptions. Kyle Slaughter, who's now released, went 6 of 13 for 22 yards. This team, like I said, outside of Defiant Smith, doesn't really have much going for it. I know they were able to keep the Brahmas in check, and they didn't have to score a lot of points to win this. However, they failed to score any points to win this. I think they scored 1 touchdown with a 3-point conversion. Other than that, yeah, their defense is good, I guess. I mean, Donald Payne had a good game with 10 total tackles, a tackle for loss and interception, but outside of that, they weren't spectacular, and they only had 1-point win over the Guardians, and I feel like if them and the Guardians, who coincidentally are number 17 here, moving up 1 spot, played again, then I think this would be probably a game the Guardians win. Now, they still didn't win their first game yet. The Guardians, they kept it close with the Sea Dragons, though. They weren't absolutely embarrassed by a team that's usually in the upper echelons of these rankings, or at least were up to this point. I think they really found their quarterback in Quentin Dormady. Now, he's not like going to tear it up and win the MVP or anything, but 24 of 44 for 243, executing the offense better than what they had this entire season. I kind of said that earlier, was they were calling fine plays, and their offensive structure wasn't the part that was terrible. It was just the supporting cast within it. And Dormady coming in and just having to be better than Paxton Lynch, which is a tall ask, and DeAndre Francois, apparently. You know, I mean, it's been working out for him. Now, Cody Lattimore, I believe he's 3rd in receiving yards now in the league, the tight end for them. And they had a good rushing game, 22 rushes for 162 yards and 2 touchdowns. They put together a decent game. Now, Seattle frequently likes to hand teams games, and, I mean, they gave up an interception to the Guardians here. However, I don't think that these 2 teams are even anywhere close in the same weight class. I just think now that the Guardians have some kind of answer quarterback, they're able to perform somewhat adamantly offensively, and that's more than I could say with Renegades. So, free Defiant Smith, and congrats to Orlando for moving up and now being only the second worst team in this league right now. We're going to see a little tier gap. We're going to go back up. This tier is going to be another 2 teams, and it's the same 2 teams as last week, and they keep just trading spots. First up at 6, down 1 spot is the Vegas Vipers. Like I said, these 2 teams have been trading. Vegas were up last week, and San Antonio was down, and then now it's back up again, and it was just a rough game for Vegas. They got blown out by the Battlehawks, who are looking pretty good. I thought, when I first moved the Vipers up, I thought, okay, Brett Hundley at quarterback is really exciting. I think they're going to be a better team with Brett Hundley at quarterback. Then he got hurt, and Luis Perez came in and moved him back down. Then Luis Perez put together a few good weeks, and okay, Luis Perez is looking like old him again. And then Luis Perez went out there and had a 13 for 20 week, 99 yards and 2 interceptions. Brett Hundley comes in, goes 50%, 9 of 18 for 120 and a touchdown. So they looked better with him in at quarterback, but there was just no traction outside of that. The rushing game was dead on arrival, even though they have a decent rushing quarterback in Brett Hundley. The Vipers are so inconsistent and have so many different directions their offense wants to go, and their defense hasn't been able to hold up as well as most people have thought. There's been a lot of disappointments on this team, whether it's Martavis Bryant, who probably had one of his better games of the season, 3 for 30, or like Vic Beasley hasn't had like that altering, like, former 15-plus sack player in the NFL comes into the XFL and he's just another dude. So this team has been super disappointing, and I'm gonna not move them up. Even if they play well next week, I need to see week-to-week consistency where I can move this team up again, because every time I go out on a branch and I move them up, then should be like, okay, they're a little better than the Browns. I think they have this offense thing figured out, and then the next week they're bust again. So plus our defense is atrocious, so they need to be good on offense, and without their consistency, they're just not. Next up is going to be the Brahmas, who were moving up one spot. I wouldn't have moved them up. They didn't, if it weren't for the Vipers being blown out. They didn't really impress me all that much. Jawan Pass, awesome last name for a quarterback, by the way. Went 8 of 14 to 57 yards. Kurt Benkirk, who they picked up like 48 hours before the game started, went 1 of 6 for 2 yards and an interception. I think Benkirk might be their starter moving forward. Pass did offer that more of a dual threat option, so that could be a potential for them. He went 4 for 21 yards rushing. Jaquez Patrick finally started getting some more touches. I think Caleb Balaj is hurt. I haven't heard anything about that. I should have looked that up before I started recording. But Jaquez Patrick, 15 carries for 82 yards. They're getting more back towards what they want to do as an offense, which is going to be run the ball, control the time possession, and really let that really good defense show out. Receiving, again, nothing special. They only passed for 59 yards the entire game and still won. I don't know if this team is going to be able to shake it up. I thought if they could get the quarterback down, maybe they'll bring in like Kyle Sloter or someone, or Kurt Benkirk with a full week could maybe make a difference for them. But I always thought that if they were able to get the quarterback right, they could be a sneaky championship team with how good this defense was. However, they've tried 4 different quarterbacks at this point, and nothing seeming to stick. I kind of knew their quarterback position was in trouble when they had Jack Cohn starting, so we'll see. I mean, shout out Luke Barku had another good week in coverage. They won the game solely off of defensive efforts, so they've proven to be able to go out there and win games without having to have a consistent offense, which, unlike the teams below them who have had inconsistent offenses, they haven't really shown the ability to win besides like maybe the Renegades, but that was because they failed to lose more than anything. The Brahmas have gone out there and been a strong team, at least on one side of the ball, consistently week to week defensively, and that has helped them close out some games that they probably shouldn't have won, such as this one against the Renegades. Next up in the next tier, without any movement, and I keep getting upset that I'm not able to move this team, but I just don't think they're better than the 3 teams above them. If this was an 8-person league or more than an 8-team league, I think these 2 guys would be pretty high. I think all 4 of these teams would be pretty high. Depending on what I see with the USFL, these 4 teams might be some of the 4 highest teams when I do the combined joint end of the year power rankings. But the St. Louis Battlehawks staying put at 4. Adrian McCarron making that late season run for MVP that I kind of talked about in my last week's power rankings when I talked about the awards. Ja'Cour Pearson having another week that went flat, so I don't know. McCarron now has 3 touchdowns, 236 yards against the Vegas Vipers, and I know they're not a good defense, but at the same time, that's still impressive. Brian Hill continues to impress. I think he'll be on an NFL roster next season or this offseason. We're still talking about the MVP here. I don't think McCarron is going to be this guy who goes and gets another NFL job or even an NFL backup job. Whereas Ja'Cour Pearson, even if he does win MVP, I think he's more likely to get on NFL rosters because he's younger, unproven. This was the kind of guy this league was made for. Somebody who went undrafted because they had no starting experience or very little production in college, and then they come out here and they're able to start and play, and they get noticed by the league. So McCarron has had that opportunity multiple times in the NFL with the Bengals, the Bills, I'm forgetting someone else who he played for, but then he wasn't able to beat out Nathan Peterman for the Buffalo Bills starting job in front of Josh Allen. So I think McCarron's time at the NFL is sailed, but he could still, be the best quarterback, best player overall for his team in the XFL, which would still be a nice little consolation prize for his career. And he seems to be having a great time with it. So I'm really happy for him. The Hakeem Butler continues to be solid. Darius Shepard had a great game with 2 touchdowns. Austin Pro's kind of falling back, but at the same time, they don't need him to be a standout. They have those other 2 guys. Their defense showed up. I mean, it wasn't hard because the Vipers were basically handing them this game and aren't able to do anything on offense. So this wasn't a tough game for them, and I wish I could move them higher in Seattle. But with them playing like this, I had to move them up to the same tier as Seattle, which they're going to be in the same tier now, below 1 and 2. Seattle didn't impress me. I thought they would come in and blow the doors off the Guardians. Actually, in one of my parlays, I took the spread here, which was -8, and Seattle barely didn't cover. I know Orlando has played teams close, but they also been blown out by other teams, so it was a gamble here or there to see which one they can do. Orlando was actually leading this game after halftime, so I was really disappointed in the Sea Dragons. They've consistently given games away and then somehow still found a way to win them. We saw that basically every win they've had is that they either win the game despite the fact that they lose a turnover battle or just don't look all that great, or they lose games that they should be winning because they just turn it over so often. Like I said, Jaquir Pearson had kind of a quieter week, 4 catches on 7 targets for 18 yards, and 3 of those catches only went for 7 yards because the long of one of his catches was 11. Josh Gordon had 0 catches on 2 targets, so the passing game is kind of falling off, and I think Ben DiNucci's hopes for an MVP or even Jaquir Pearson's are kind of slipping. This game, they're lucky they played against one of the bottom 2 teams in the league, because otherwise I don't think they would have won this one just without they played. I'm going to have to see what happens next week. I know there's going to be some more crucial games being played in the upcoming schedule, especially for these top teams. I know there was a crucial one that we're going to get to in our top 2 guys. As you can clearly see, we're getting to those 2 teams. But like week 7, I think the Sea Dragons should be able to beat the Renegades, but at the same time, I thought they should be able to clear house on the Guardians, and they weren't able to. And then after that, they still have to face the Defenders again. They have to face the Battlehawks, and they have to face the Vipers again, which are all, I think those are all Northern division or in division opponents. So this is going to be really telling for see which between them and St. Louis who's going to be the one in the playoffs from that North Division. And for our final tier here, we're going to actually have some movement at the top. Houston's going to fall down 1 after basically getting blown out by the Defenders. This game was a lot further apart than it seemed. I know there were a couple big Houston touchdowns that kind of made this game seem a little closer than it was. They pulled Brandon Silvers after a relatively ineffective night, 10 of 17 for 111 and an interception. Cole McDonald came in, hit 8 of 11 for 194 yards and a touchdown. Now, if it's really 7 for 10 for 109, because one of those passes went for 85 yards, but that's still better than what Brandon Silvers was doing, so I don't know if they're going to roll Cole McDonald. Silvers has been a good quarterback up until this point. The Defenders were able to take away the run game. Max Borghi had a couple of touchdowns, but he had only 2.3 yards per carry, so they kind of took that from them. I was really impressed with how Houston controlled the line of scrimmage, having a lot of really good 4th and goal, 4th and 1 kind of stops against the Defenders who were known for running the ball. But as the game went on, it was more and more evident that they were getting worn down and weren't able to really continue that steam they had in the first quarter, at least. So Houston impressed me when it came to the trenches. I knew they had a great defensive front, and I just think they executed so poorly on offense today, and that DC's Defenders defense was able to get the best of them to the point where they weren't able to keep up with the Defenders once they were able to solve their defense. I don't know how many times these 2 teams play. The Defenders, who are going to be number 1 here, moving up 1, are going to win. But I think the Defenders overall were the better team on all ends of the football. Their defense was better than the Roughnecks defense for the entire 60 minutes. Same thing with the offense. They were more consistent. I will have to see if the Roughnecks can bounce back and get some more consistency. But right now, the Defenders look like the best team. They're probably going to come out of that North Division, which might be a bloodbath. So we'll see what happens. I would be a betting man if I was to put my betting hat on. I'd guess that maybe the Defenders could go undefeated. They've played all the Southern teams, and they still have to play a couple more teams in the North over the next 3 weeks, from Week 7 to Week 10. And then when it comes to the playoffs, I don't know if any of these teams in the North, maybe St. Louis, who kept it close to them. Seattle hasn't played them since Week 1, and that was when they were kind of discombobulated. So if Seattle can stop turning the ball over and put back their offense together, maybe they might be able to make a run for DC. DC is probably just mad that they're not in the Southern Division because they probably would be running away with that, just how they looked against Houston this week. So we'll see what happens. This is probably more, to be honest with you, this Houston versus DC game was really a preview for the championship game. I don't think Houston's not going to make it, and DC has very high potential to make it out of that North Division. So we'll see what happens. I enjoyed this game. Hope you guys did too, even though it lost me money. And yeah, that's it. I'll be back next week with some more XFL content. Still trying to get some more draft content out of the way. If you want to see draft content but don't want to wait for me to post videos, you can pay $1 at patreon.com/KielPro88, KIELPRO88, and get all my draft write-ups for just $1 a month. Or you can head over to Defiant Takes Football and check out some of the write-ups I'm doing for that website as well. That is free. So check out both of those sites. If you want to pay up, you can check out one. If you don't want to, go check out the other. Either way, it helps me out, and I'll see you guys in the next one.